Houston Motorsports. So in this video, I think we're probably going to end up working on mostly the 426 3-liter Whipple supercharged hemi powered Dodge Dakota. That's a lot to say right there, but you can probably maybe hear it's running in the background. We're just letting it warm up before we continue to do a little bit more data logging with Matt, who's tuning it. I guess there ended up being an ice storm up in Tennessee, so kind of delayed the tuning a little bit because that's where Matt's at. But anyways, we got the Hellcat Dakota here, we got the Z06, got the Hellcat swapped Ram 1500 and our ACR Viper. But if you guys are new to the channel, this is what we're going to be messing with, at least for the start of this video. I don't know what else we'll get into because it's always something around here. So here she is, 3-liter supercharged Hemi and a 426 that we built here in-house using MMX components. So anyways, we're letting it warm up a little bit. It's running on the Holley Terminator X Max. We still have a little bit of the interior out until we finalize everything, but here it is inside. It's running the 8-speed automatic. So we're gonna go out and do a little data logging. I know a lot of guys want to see how it performs, so I'll try to relay that experience as much as I possibly can through the camera for you guys, and we'll see if we can get this thing more dialed in and see if we can wrap this up. So trying to get this as wrapped up as possible so that it can get delivered to the customer, but we got to run through a bunch of trial and error. I also got to put some fuel in it because we've already burned through almost another tank of gas, and we'll keep testing it. So first thing we got to do is put some fuel on this thing. It's showing like 18%. I don't know if you guys can see it with the glare on there. I saw the plastic protector on there that came on the screen. I'll let the owner peel that one off. But I want to show you guys something. So one thing, I mean, my recommendation, of course, we left the board that goes behind the seat out and ended up putting like bed liner, like rocker guard type stuff. But you get so much noise coming through there because that board was originally like a sound board. So yeah, it would be good to probably put that back in so we don't get so much noise through here. But check this out. I don't know if you guys will be able to see this, but I have a sport button and then I've got a track button. So, and those change how the transmission behaves. So right now it'll shift through all the gears and quickly get into overdrive, which is really nice for like a daily driver application. But then if you want to have a little bit more fun, have it be a little bit more rowdy, whatnot. So look, it runs through the gears beautifully right now. So we're doing like 33 mile an hour, you know, 1100 RPM. Like, this thing is working awesome. We'll let it grab another gear before I show you guys what I want to show you. Okay, so there. Grabbed all the gears, right? If I put it in sport mode, you're gonna see it jump out of overdrive and get ready for some action. See how it dropped the gear? And if I turn off the sport mode, like, so right now it's not in overdrive, as soon as I turn this off, it's gonna grab the next gear. There you go, 1100 RPM. So it's pretty cool that way that works. And then track mode is just a more aggressive version of the same thing. So I wanted to show you guys that, and I'll show you guys how it behaves as far as like shifting. Right now we're kind of just in traffic, so I can't really show you guys anything as far as like acceleration with sport mode or track mode, but I'll show you that here shortly once we get fuel and kind of get out of traffic area. Alright, 13% fuel. So we're here at the racetrack. Let's fill up with some 93 again, and then we'll get back on the road. Alright, so $68, 17 gallons of gas. So she was definitely accurate on our fuel gauge. It's quite a bit of fuel went into her, so should help too with a little more weight in the back too, so we can test this thing out a little bit and not be spinning all over the place. Alright, we'll do a little mini pull here. Alright, so we're driving back right now. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it, but I'm getting a little bit of whine out of the rear end, so I'm gonna go back, we'll pop the diff cover, see if, I don't know, maybe the backlash opened up or something. I don't think it should be this loud, and it just started to doing it just right now, so I don't know, let's go pop the cover. Kind of wanted to drop the fluid anyways, and you have to pop the cover to do it on these things, so let's go check it out. Alright, so she's up in the air. Fluid looks good, so I don't think it's an issue there. I don't see any metallic flakes or anything. The only thing I could think of is maybe with the amount of power this thing has, like maybe the crush sleeve compressed a little bit. I mean, I don't know, it's a little bit odd. I don't think I've ever had this happen before, but Anyways, in order to drain the fluid on these, you have to take the cover off, and I kind of want to change it anyways, just since we got a little bit of break-in on it. So let's pop the cover off. I'll double check the backlash on it, and we'll see if it maybe loosened up, see if we can see anything, or if we maybe have to tighten it up, and we'll reseal it. All right, so there's the fluid, you guys. Nothing bad looking with the fluid, so let's see if maybe the backlash opened up. All right, so I've got it all apart, you guys, and the backlash has opened up significantly. One thing that I did see though is, if you guys watched the video where I did this, so I just set it to 8 thousandths backlash, and then I set it to what the factory specs were. So you got 100 foot-pounds on these cat bolts, and then 75 on the adjusters from each side, 75 foot-pounds. I did a bunch of reading online, and a lot of people were saying to go significantly more. And when I say significantly, I'm talking like people are saying to put 150 foot-pounds on these side preload adjusters, because they said that after these bearings wear in, and even if they're already worn in, to put 150 foot-pounds on them, because they're saying that otherwise you're going to get this deflection and you're going to end up getting more backlash. So pretty crazy. I mean, this thing is throwing down a bunch of power. I might have driven for a mile or two with it starting to make noise, so caught it just in time. But yeah, it's pretty strange. So anyways, I'm gonna recheck everything, go through it all, and then we'll reset the backlash on this, and I'll let you guys know what I find, and I'll show you guys. Right now the backlash is, it's hard to even show you guys with the glare on the camera, but it's quite a bit here. So I'm gonna go ahead and tighten it up, and then we'll see what happens. One thing I did want to point out just before I start taking this apart is I also checked the preload on our side bearings, and I still have the correct preload. So I still got 75 foot-pounds here, and I still have 100 foot-pounds here. So very strange, very strange. All right, so after resetting everything, we are now at 6. I don't know if you guys will see that. I ended up cracking my dial gauge in the whole process. I dropped a tool on it, and that was the end of the lens lease, but still accurate. So now we're at 6 thousandths. So if you guys can see there, and you always want to go on the drive side of the tooth when you're measuring this, so you want to hit it that way. So we're in spec. What I'm going to do is I'm going to check it in a couple other spots. You're supposed to check it every 90 degrees. So I just marked right here, this tooth, I'm at 6 thousandths. I'm going to check it in the 3 other spots. So like I said, 90 degrees separation. Make sure that we're not tighter than 6 thousandths anywhere, and then we can call this good. All right, so here's the next spot at 90 degrees. You can see there we're just over 6 thousandths. Hopefully you guys can see there. There's 0, 6 thousandths, maybe 6 thousandths and a half. So we'll go check it at the next 90. Okay, here's the next 90. This one looks like it's like 7.5 thousandths. So this is why we check. 0, about 7.5. And then we got one more to go, and then we can call this good. All right, so last but not least, this one looks like it's about 9. So this is why you go around in 4 different areas, because you want to make sure your tightest area isn't tighter than 6 thousandths. So you see there, zeroed out. If you guys can see that, there's a lot of glare. And we're looking through my cracked lens, 0, 9. So I'm happy with that. Like I said, the tightest side that we have is 6, and then this one looks like it might be 9, unless my gauge is just leaving the chat. But either way, well within spec. So double check everything. Like I said, all these are already torqued. I made sure to check my final measurements with everything torqued. So side ones are torqued for our preload, and then our caps are torqued. So all we got to do is put in our locks back in, and then we're ready to clean this up. I got to scrape off all the old gasket material, put some new Right Stuff RTV on there, and then we can put the cap back on it. And before I get a bunch of comments, yes, I did check the pattern. I'm just trying to get this thing back together. But yeah, check the pattern and we're all good as well. Alright, well, I can't see anything with these headlights. They are pointed right at the ground. So we're going to have to try to do some sort of adjustment. I don't know if you guys can see that, but it is super hard to see right now. We're just headed over to O'Reilly's. I'll talk a little bit more about the differential stuff in a minute. But headed over to O'Reilly's. We're gonna get some new spark plugs. Matt that's tuning it wants some new the original ones that we started up the new engine with. We had brake-in oil on them, so plus it was rich when we first started up, so we're gonna put in some new spark plugs, and then we're gonna gap them actually a little bit tighter. Right now they're at 22 thousandths. We're gonna gap the new ones to, I believe he said 16 thousandths. He wants to keep the gap really tight on those, but yeah, hard to see. If I put on the high beams though, look at that. I'm sure the oncoming drivers don't like me too much, but I can see everything. Look, if I turn them off, like just turned out the lights. It's terrible. All right, guys. Well, it's the next day, so I started to rip this thing apart. I got 8 new plugs, but I've got to go get the other 8. They only had 8 in stock, and then the other 8 were going to show up. So that doesn't stop us from getting stuff done, though. So I'm tackling the harder side because I don't know if you guys can see that, but that coil pack is right between the brake booster. So I'm gonna get that coil pack out. I already got 3 out. These 3 were fairly straightforward to get out, and then these 4 are gonna be fairly easy. The one in the back's a little bit more congested, but either way, it should be pretty easy. If you guys have ever done this job on a hellcat, it's no treat either, because you have literally the frame rails like right here, and the shock tower and all that stuff. So hopefully that back one, I haven't had to service it yet, but we're gonna put the new plugs in, and I'm gonna gap all the plugs, and I'll show you guys the old plugs. They're pretty rich, so I don't know if they're a little bit fouled up, but Matt wanted to put some new plugs in it just after we started it. We had break-in oil on this thing. It was running rich when we first started it, plus all the break-in oil and whatnot, lots of stuff coming out of the exhaust. So who knows whether that fouled some of the stuff up, but we want to start off with fresh plugs, and we're going to gap them a little bit tighter. So let me continue on this, and let's see how difficult it is to get that coil pack out. All right, well, we've got 7 out of 8 here. I'm getting it done, but it is too much fun. So see in the back right there, I have to put all the bits one by one. So I have to put the socket in, then I have to use this extension, then I have to put the ratchet, and then on the way back out, I have to do it piece by piece. Not only that, but I have to use a magnet to get each piece out, because look, I can barely fit. I'll see if I can do this while holding a camera with you guys. This just barely fits in there. The other thing I'm gonna do before I drop that in though, I'm gonna take out the little rubber thing in here, just so that I can get this out, because I can't get the plug out with the socket. I gotta take the socket out, and then I gotta use a magnet to get the plug out. It's very tight, but at least it's serviceable. All right, so we got all 8 out. Here's what they look like. So like I said, you can see how it was burning nice after the fact, but there was a while there where it was running really rich. So we've got this 8 all brand new, and if you guys are wondering what plugs they are, they're Iridium's LZTR7AIX, and we gapped these to 16 thousandths. These were originally at 22 thousandths. Matt wants them at 16, so we're gonna tighten up the gap, or actually I just did tighten up all the gap on them, and now they're ready to go in, and then they're ready to go back on the driver's side bank. All right, so here's the pile of old spark plugs, and then we've got the 2 new packages here so that we can continue on this side. So driver's side's all done. Passenger side, we got all the coils out. We're gonna gap these plugs here and then get these new plugs in as well. Okay, so there we go. There's the last 8 for the passenger side. We've got them all gapped. Let's get them in, and then we can get back to testing. All right, so the new plugs are all installed, so let's go ahead and fire this thing up. We're gonna data log it, take it for a little rip, and we'll see how she does. All right, so nothing too crazy, you guys, but I'll show you guys a little bit of moderate acceleration. It feels healthy. I guess we'll wait to see what Matt says, but I dare to say that this thing feels stronger now. Like I'm maybe putting my foot into it a third of the way. I don't know how it's coming across on the camera, but this thing got torque for days. And as far as the rear end's whining, I got a little story about that, so we'll talk about that later though. We got some work to do. But just focus on the drive, you guys, and just how she works. So I'll do another little moderate acceleration here. All right, guys, so now for the story on the rear differential. So when we installed the new rear differential, we tightened everything to factory spec and set it at 8 thousandths of an inch backlash. So drove around with it, but obviously we had to put this thing through its paces. So I drove around for a little bit, but ultimately it ended up opening up the backlash quite a bit. I've got 2 suspected reasons, and this isn't my first rear end that I've built. I've built at least a handful of them and haven't had any problems, but I haven't had the exact circumstances of this one to where it was built and it needed to get tested right away. So 2 things. One thing, there is a bit of a break-in period. Motive Gears has a break-in period where you're supposed to run it for about 500 miles, varying speeds. Not only that, but you're supposed to do 3 heat cycles on it. So you're supposed to drive it up to temperature for about 10-15 minutes and then let it completely cool down. You're supposed to do that 3 times and then drive about 500 miles, varying speeds. I don't think we've put quite that amount of mileage on it. But Motive Gears also has a heat cycle and sequence for even if you're circle track racing a vehicle with their gears. So with that being said, we're not exactly racing this car. It is still a street vehicle, so we still want the gears to sound good and not be loud and audible. So maybe if you were circle tracking them and you use their circle track procedure, you probably wouldn't care about noisy gears. But in this case, with it being a street vehicle, you're really hearing the gears. So I reset the backlash like I mentioned to you, and I think I showed you guys as well in the video. I've been filming so much I can't even keep track of how much I've been filming. But ultimately, it's still whining. It's not, I tightened up the backlash, reset everything, but it is still making noise. So we're going to be putting a brand new gear set in it, and then we can't really beat on this thing for 500 to 1,000 miles. So we've already got the testing in as far as, you know, doing some polls and getting some data logs. All the air fuel ratios look good. Matt said we're good to go as far as that way. So now I'm going to rip apart the rear end, put a brand new gear set in it, reset the backlash, and then we kind of have to drive like a grandma in this thing for a while. Oh, Falcon is pissed. And then we can get back into it. So that's pretty much the situation. I've got it up on the lift right now. We're going to lift it up, put a brand new gear set in it, and then, yeah, she'll be back on the road again. But not what I want to do. Also, I am going to be increasing some of the torque specs. I did find some information online that said that the preload on the carrier bearings, that people are going higher than the recommended 75 foot-pounds from the factory on them. I saw people going upwards, I think I was telling you guys, of like 140, 150 foot-pounds of side load carrier bearing preload. I'm not going to go that high. I might bump it up to 100, but that'll just keep everything more in alignment because this thing's got some serious jams. Probably got like 900 foot-pounds of torque right now, so who knows whether there was a bit of walk or movement in there with having the lower factory torque spec, but who knows? Let's get on to it. All right, unfortunately, I feel like I'm becoming an expert at this. So I got the rear end completely torn apart here. So there you go. Everything is out of the housing. And over here on the bench, I started taking everything apart. So I got the old ring gear off the carrier. I got the bearing off the pinion here so that we can get our shim out, because it's the stock shim, and usually using the stock shim gets you pretty dang close. And then we've got our brand new Motive gear set ring and pinion. So I'm gonna throw this in the oven. I should probably get a hot plate because it would probably make things a little bit nicer and not stink up my house. But I'm gonna put this in the oven because it just makes it that much easier just to slide on here. And then while we do that, we'll get our setup bearing and everything on this one. We'll take our shim, setup bearing, and get things sorted out and start getting things back in. All right, little update for you guys. So ring gear came out of the oven, went on here. I put brand new bolts on the ring gear, tightened them, torqued them down, and put red Loctite on them. So those are good to go. And then I took out the shim, put it on our new pinion, and put a brand new setup bearing. So this is a setup bearing that I have that you can literally just slide off. So it's brand new bearing, but I honed out the inside so that we can slip this on and off. So we'll go ahead, set it up, check our patterns. This is the pain in the butt part of it. You got to go in and out and in and out. Every time you got to change the shim or, you know, see how the gear pattern's looking, but you have to physically put everything in as if you're going to leave it in and then take it all back out, because this is the crush sleeve right here, if you guys aren't familiar with the process. But you don't put the crush sleeve in to set it up, you just check everything. But every time you got to put it in and out. And then on your final assembly, we got to put the brand new bearing, the crush sleeve, and then torque everything down. But until we get to that point, let's go check everything out and see what we come up with. All right, so it's gonna be hard for me to illustrate while holding the camera, but we just double checked here. So got 25 inch-pounds here on our rotating force on our pinion. So that is our preload on our bearings. So we've got 25 inch-pounds, that's within spec. So now we'll go ahead, throw the carrier in there and set our backlash. I'm gonna set it as tight as possible, just in case, since this thing has so much power, it opens up. Spec is actually, I'm seeing a little bit of variance. Some say between 5 and 10 thousandths, some say between 6 thousandths and up. So somewhere in the 5 to 6 thousandths mark. I think tighter would be a little bit better. And yeah, we'll set that up and then we'll see what our pattern looks like. Okay, so I've got everything torqued down, tightened to where I like it. So right now we're just about 6 thousandths. I don't know if you guys can see that. I got a new gauge, by the way, so this one seems to be a little more accurate too. It's just reads a little nicer. So right there, if I can get it without the glare for you guys, we're at 6, bounces back to 0. So there you go. Pretty much bang on 6, maybe a hair less, but I'll take it. If you guys have ever done this, it is very tedious. But you can hear that nice tight little clink back and forth. So first off, I'm gonna check it at 90 degrees, make sure we still are within spec, and then if we are, we just wanna make sure we don't get too tight. Like I said, 6 thousandths here, or if we're 5 on the other side. Like I said, I'm gonna set this up a little bit tighter than the last time. But yeah, we just don't wanna be like, 4 thousandths somewhere or something like that, because it's a little too tight. Okay, so here's a perfect example of what I was talking about. So we rotated around, I'm at 90 degrees from before, and you'll notice now we're at like almost 4.5 thousandths on this one. So check it out. So like 4.5. If I can dial this in, this thing is very sensitive. Yeah, so we're about 4 here, so that's too tight. So that means this is probably our tighter section on the gear. So what we're gonna do is we'll set it here for our 5 or 6, and then the other one would be 7, that sort of thing. So because you don't want to ever go below your minimum. So we're gonna have to loosen it up just a hair and make this, I guess, our 5 thousandths, since this one's too tight, and then we'll recheck it all over again. So very tedious process. All right, so after a bunch of messing around, I'm telling you guys, this is a process. So got it to where I'm happy. So you see here, gauge is zeroed out. If I rock it, we've got just over 6 thousandths now, and this was the same mark. I don't know if you can see, I put a paint mark there. That was the one that was tight before. So now I can continue to go around and we'll double check it and make sure that we're all within spec. What do you think, Dennis?
I think it's full send time.
Woo! All right, so we ended up checking all the backlash in 4 different spots, 90 degrees apart. My gloves took a beating, and here's our pattern. So we're right in the middle. We've got the nice little hamburgers going there, and then I don't know if I can get underneath this, but it is right in the middle. We got nice hamburgers in the middle of the tooth there as well. So everything looks good. I did the paint also, or the marking compound, in 2 sides as well. So we got it here and then elsewhere on the ring gear, and they both look good. So now we get to take it all apart again and put the new bearing in, take out the setup bearing, put the crush sleeve in, reassemble that, and then get back to here. So I'm just gonna go through it, you guys, because this is a tedious process and I'm already kind of over it. So let me get through it and then I'll show you guys the result. Okay, and here we go. So this is the new one. I put on a brand new crush sleeve. It's got the brand new bearing. I pressed that one on. I took off our setup bearing, so now that the pinion's ready to go in, I'm gonna get that in there, get our preload on our pinion all set correct, and we'll get that all set up and then we can move on. All right, so pretty happy with the way I've got this now. So we've got this preload on our pinion so that we're at 25 inch-pounds. I don't know if you'll be able to see that, it's pretty small, but once you break the initial torque, so you can see there it goes up to like 35, and you should be able to see that. It's hard to follow the camera with it, but there you go. 25 inch-pounds maintaining rotation. So we are good there. So we got the proper preload on our pinion. Now we can go ahead and put the carrier in, go back and forth a million times, getting the carrier and the backlash set up. So I got red Loctite here on our pinion nut. I also like to put a little bit of RTV on the actual splines of the pinion itself, and a little bit behind on the washer, just so that you don't get any leaks out of here. So obviously it's got a nice new seal here, but I also want to make sure you don't get any leaks coming out of the actual pinion itself following the threads up or the splines up and whatnot. So that's all sealed, good to go. This feels nice, and we can go ahead and put the carrier in. All right, so I finally got this thing spec'd out, and I'm happy where it is. So if you guys can see right there, we're at 0. And then if I rock it, we're at 6,000. So this is the tightest part of the ring. It opens up to, I think, 7. There's quite a bit of variance on, this mode of gear set. I know some people say, different ones are built a little bit better than others. I think the most it opens up to is 8,000. So there is quite a bit of variance, but we got 6, and then I think there's like 7.5, almost 8 in another spot. So about a thou or two of variance, in different parts of the ring, but all within spec. So everything's torqued down. If you guys are wondering what I did on torque specs, 100 foot-pounds on here. And then, like I said, I researched a bunch, and there was a bunch of people saying to go more on these preloads so that the carrier doesn't potentially move. So if you guys are wondering, before we tighten these down to 75 foot-pounds, which is what the book said, I read a bunch of stuff, and people were going even higher than I went, but I went 140. So 140 foot-pounds on the sides, so that'll help to keep this thing from walking in and out and us losing our backlash, and especially when this thing is under a ton of torque. That way this thing doesn't start walking on us and chew up potentially the gears again. So I don't know if it was maybe a little bit of break-in, since we were testing this thing quite extensively to get this thing tuned and whatnot, if it was break-in, or if just having this thing not preloaded enough, it walked a little bit on us. But either way, she should be solid now. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean up our gasket surfaces. So both ends are torqued, caps are torqued. I gotta put in my locks, and then we're actually gonna put a B&M differential cover on this, and it actually has support for the main bearing caps, so even further support for all of this torque going through this thing. So I'll show you guys that in a second. All right, guys, so we've got the diff all back together. So we put the B&M cover on here. All of our bolts are torqued. I filled it up with fluid. Everything's good, capped, sealed. So now we can bring this back down. I did put on the brakes, wheels, all that stuff is all back on there. We'll bring it back down. We'll be able to take it for a drive, and now we are stuck to driving this thing like a grandma for a little while until the rear end breaks in. But it's pretty much what it is. Let's go ahead and we'll take for a rip. All right, so before it gets much darker out, we're gonna go ahead, take this thing for a spin, drive for 10-15 minutes, let the rear end heat up, and then you gotta let it fully cool. So you're supposed to do that 3 times according to Motive. So let's go. All right, there we go, guys. We are driving. We got no whine. Let me even put up the window for you guys. Still gotta put in this board behind the, we're getting a lot of like just even exhaust and road noise through this back panel once we put that on. But gear noise is gone. We just have to drive like a granny for a while to let this gear set break in. But yeah, she sounds good. So yeah, drives just like stock, you guys. That's the goal, is to just keep testing this thing just until this thing drives as good as possible. So we're gonna take for like I said, 10-15 minute drive, nothing crazy, and then we gotta let it fully cool again. So nothing crazy, we can't beat on it. Unfortunately, I know everybody wants to see us send it, but probably what didn't help the last gear set survive. So anyways, this is it. Not that exciting for you guys, but yeah, just putting around. All right, so we're back in the shop. I'm gonna go ahead and see if we can't adjust these headlights, because it is just no good trying to drive at night. The problem is, I don't know if you guys can see it, the headlights are situated fine, but the actual projectors are facing down. So I gotta see if I can somehow, because like I said, the headlights are facing normally, but the projectors are downward facing. It's very odd what's going on here. See if the other one's the same way. Yeah, so see, I don't know if you guys will see that. See the angle of the projector is like this. It's pointed at the ground, so somehow I gotta see if I can modify the back of the headlight to make these at least straight. So pretty much this straight line here on this red piece, we need that to be rotated back so that we get a nice normal headlight pattern. But let me see what I can come up with. All right, so this may or may not sound ridiculous, but I am going to redo this in a certain way. So what we're gonna do is, right now I have it kind of like a factory setup. So the outside projector is on, and then when you turn on the high beams, this projector comes on and then the shutter opens, so it goes up. What I'm actually gonna do is, because this one's actually situated pretty nice, these ones are pointed at the ground. There's not much I can do about it as far as adjusting it. I tried, believe me you guys, but they're just, whatever way they got installed, it's just, I managed to get that one a little bit up, but not nearly enough. But this one sits fairly straight. So what I'm gonna do is turn this projector on as well. It won't look like a factory setup. Both projectors are gonna be running at all times, but at least it'll cast some light down the road so that they're actually functional. And then when you hit the high beams, the shutters will open and it'll remove the cutoff on it. So that's what I'm doing. I'm rewiring this one right now. I just tested it and my theory works. So I'll show you guys here. I've got that headlight hanging there. So this is what I mean. So right now, it's just this projector on for the low beam. When you turn on the high beam, this one turns on and the shutter opens. And then the way I have this one is, shutters are both closed, but see how both lights are illuminated? So I'm gonna do a little rewiring in the back and do it that way. All right, so now we got these two on instead of just this one on, and you can really see the difference. So look at how low the light was here. I managed to lift one of them up a little bit, and then the other one's up there so that it's a little bit brighter on the road for us, hopefully. So anyways, that's what we got. Let's go ahead and do the same to this one. All right, it's a little bit better now. That's high beam, low beam. So low beam, high beam. Still kind of wonky, they're all over the place, but at least you can kind of see now. All right, so headlights seem better. Next up, so diff is gonna cool. We're gonna drive it again in the morning. Right now it's nighttime. We'll drive it again in the morning. We gotta do 2 more heat cycles on that. And then here is the board. So this backboard, I don't know, it might seem black right now, but it's kind of a charcoal color. So we're gonna paint it with the vinyl and fabric paint, get it looking black. That way tomorrow it can dry overnight, and then we can install it tomorrow. All right, so here's our second heat cycle in this thing, you guys. Everything sounds good, nice and quiet. I did get that panel put in the back here. I still got a few clips to throw in it, but it's much more quiet and just tolerable inside here. One thing that's kind of hard to differentiate though is the blower does whine, so you kind of have that like weird blower whine. So I'm like listening for everything to make sure that the rear end doesn't whine, but not hearing any rear end whine, but you kind of get a little bit of the out of the blower. So this Whipple supercharger sounds a lot different than I'm used to with the IHI Eaton version on the Hellcats, but you'll kind of notice when I come to a stop, you're like, but it's the blower. But it's blower dependent, because if I click it into neutral, we don't get any whine. At least not from the blower, but no like speed dependent whine. So, but everything's working good. I'm just testing through everything. But yeah, it's just blower whine. Oh, look at that thing. The guy's got a freaking monster truck right there. He's firing up. I don't know if you guys could hear that over everything else, but yeah, this is a really cool road right through here. It's fun to just test stuff on this one. It's a little more windy and got turns. But yeah, if I click this to neutral, no gear noise. So not that exciting as far as road testing goes for you guys, but it's what we gotta do. Wow, this guy's crazy. All right. showed you guys before, if you put it in sport track mode, the transmission behavior switches and it becomes more aggressive, doesn't go into full overdrive. But yeah, just cruising around like this, like this thing has so much torque, you guys. Like it just rifles through the gears. Oh, this guy's gonna be making a wide turn. Damn. Going in a ditch and everything. But yeah, so this thing just pretty much rifles through the gears. It'll sit at like 1100 RPM and just do what it's gotta do. Like watch. Doesn't mean it's barely pressing on the gas. I don't know if you guys are counting the gears, but she is just humming along here, 1100 RPM. I like it. So this is a 3:21 gear ratio. That's the smallest ratio that you can go with on the 9 1/4, as far as I know. You gotta remember the stock Hellcat stuff, Charger, Challenger. Hellcat's usually 267, a 267, and then an upgrade for a Hellcat's like a 30, I think a 307 or 309. So with us being a 321, it's the closest we can get to that, but it's still a ton of gear for this little light truck. So anyways, it's working all good. We'll get back. We got a few things more to wrap up on the truck. See what we get into. As far as the headlights, you guys can, I have them on right now. You guys can probably see, even during the day, they're illuminating like up to there. So I'm a lot happier with the change on the headlights, but before I just could not see anything, and the projectors that somebody installed in these headlight housings are non-adjustable, so there wasn't really much I can do. If you guys do hear any like kind of tapping sound, it's this right here. The seatbelt buckle keeps bouncing off of here. I don't know if I gotta shove something in there or try to bend it over, but it's the only rattle this whole truck makes. Other than that, she's solid, doesn't make any squeaks or rattles. All right, guys, so back in the shop. So we got some things to button up on this. I gotta kind of tuck away and finalize some of the wiring. We kind of had some of it out and open just because we kept adding different inputs into our Holly. So if you guys recall, this steering wheel cover was from the original automatic. It had this huge hole right here, if you guys will be able to see that. But I did end up, I actually got the 4-ways on, but I did end up finding and purchasing a manual steering column cover. So luckily enough, it still does have the tilt steering. It's got the turn signal, there's our 4-ways, and then it doesn't have that large hole right here. So we'll put this one on, and that way we won't have that large hole there. So I do have to find the screws that hold this together. I guess there's 2 screws right there, because at this point, between this thing going for paint and being apart a million times, I gotta find those. Also, I do have to head to the junkyard, I think I was telling you guys, to get the clips here, because the body shop took the headliner down and then they just never, I don't know what they did with those like clips that hold the sun visors, but I can't find them anywhere, so might have to do that. But let's get those 2 things sorted out. All right, so we just hit the junkyard and had to get these 2 little deals here for our sun visors. So I think that's about it. Let me double check if we need anything else. Okay, and I found this newer Durango. For whatever reason, you can see the one on the right here is a little bit wider. This is the 97 to 99 Dakota type style. For some reason, the newer one's wider. Where it goes into the chassis looks the same, but just in case it's different, we're gonna grab both. All right, and after the junkyard, we just left the Dodge dealership because I had to pick up a couple of these heat shields for the knock sensors. So we needed them for the Holly harness. So these are 2 brand new heat shields from the Dodge dealership. So let's get back. All right, so we are back, and I did have to shave quite a bit from the back of our dash trim here because we have the Holly Pro dash on there, and obviously it's not the factory one. So I was trying to clip it all in to put it in final, but had to shave a ton of material off, as you can see down here on the ground. I probably took like a 1/4 inch off this whole thing. So now we should hopefully be able to click this in. That way that's all squared away. Let's get it in. All right, so next day, and what I'm doing right now is we're just labeling everything. So a lot of stuff now that we're kind of finalized in a little bit more. So these 2 ones that I repurposed, labeled them on the back of the fuse box lid. That way they are appropriately labeled, our relays. And then before I start buttoning up the bottom of the fuse box and tying in all this wiring, I also labeled a lot of this stuff here. So If you guys have ever opened up the bottom of a fuse box, there's like a ton of spaghetti on the back of where all of your relays and fuses go. So I've had the bottom of it open for a while because we've been in there and in and out of there, whatnot. So all of our inputs in and out of our Holly, there is, I think, still one spare, but everything that we've plumbed in is all here. So that way everything's labeled. We know exactly what all that is. And I'm gonna go ahead and dress this in. And then I've got the bottom of the fuse box actually over here. So this will snap onto the bottom, hide all that spaghetti nonsense underneath it. It all just kind of sits in here, and that's the exact same way it was from the factory. So get that all in there, and then I just gotta dress in some wiring over here as well. So let me get that done, show you guys what it looks like all cleaned up. All right guys, well, many hours later, and now I've got it to where I want it. So all the wires are all wrapped up nicely. Everything is cleaned up. Bottom of the fuse box is on, and got everything sorted out. There's a little bit of like, I don't know, like a dirt stain here on this part of the fuse box. I'm gonna try and clean it up, maybe put some Armor All or something of that nature on there, but everything is sitting down nicely. Things are labeled. Good to go. That all snaps down. And then I also did a ton of work in here. I still got some scraps and stuff to clean up, but now the wiring is all cleaned up. Hopefully you guys can see it here with the light. So everything is organized. It was a little clustered in here. We do have a bunch of additional wiring in here, but it's only so much we can do. So now I can install this panel. I also left this here. So this is our OBD2 connector for the transmission, and then this one here is for the Holly. So I made sure that we can have this right here so that it's accessible once we put the kick panel on, and easily can plug in a laptop or the little touchscreen, whatever we need to do. So let me put this panel on, and then the interior is pretty much together. I just got to put that door sill on as well. I've been leaving it off because since we painted all the interior while we're in and out testing, I just didn't want to continually scuff it up. That way I had more time to cure. And then yeah, everything's looking good. Got this all fitted in here. Still have the plastic on the Holly, but we'll take that off probably in short order here. I just kind of want to get the interior all cleaned up and all together. Okay, and I've got the truck up in the air, so I'm installing these Mopar heat shields on our knock sensors. So you can see right there, I just put that one on, and then I gotta get my hand up in here. This goes in like that, and they just snap on over top. So let me set the camera down, but this will get installed on top of that knock sensor right there. All right, and there's the other heat shield installed right there. So other than that, we'll double check everything is tight. And yeah, this thing is pretty much ready to go home. Okay, other thing we're doing is dropping the engine oil and changing the filter one more time before it leaves. We've got a brand new Mopar SRT filter going on. All right, there we go. Old filters off, new filters on. Drained our oil so we can bring this thing back down and fill it with fresh oil. All right, guys. Well, the truck is outside, and I think this may be it for this truck. So it is getting picked up here shortly, but check it out. Here is what all of this work came out to be. Tons and tons of hours into this thing, you guys. So it has everything: 8-speed automatic, 426 cubic inches, 3-liter Whipple supercharger. Like I said, heat works, AC works, all the drive modes work on the 8-speed transmission: sport mode, track mode, regular cruising mode. You can use the shifter on the shift stock, so you can manually shift on that. So you can put it in manual mode, you just slide it over, and then you've got manual mode. I don't know what else to say, you guys. This thing just has everything. So also, we put the biggest meat we can on these 20-inch wheels. If it was my truck, I'd probably end up putting some smaller diameter wheels in the rear and getting more rubber there, but that can always be done later, or if you know you're going to the track, whatnot. And then here is the inside, as you guys know. So everything has been converted, black color match, all that dressed in real nice. And yeah, it's just real nice. And I will show you guys the screen. There's still gonna be some glare because it's super bright out, but let me show you guys. So we hop in here. As soon as you turn it on, I did finally take the piece of plastic off there. Hopefully you guys will be able to see it. I feel like I'm looking at a reflection of myself recording, but anyways, hopefully you guys can see. It's a little bit hard with the amount of glare and reflection we're getting right now, but you can see it really well. So I also got this massive, like, Tesla style screen, and it rotates, so you can put it whatever way. I'm not sure how it works exactly. I didn't really mess with it. Oh, it actually does automatically rotate. So there you go. It does that as well. pretty cool little setup here. So yeah, if you want to use it in the vertical, and I'm sure some people are going to ask, but the AC controls, you can still easily get your hands down here to operate them, and the AC button. This here, maybe at a future date, I know the owner wants to potentially maybe try to 3D print something, move the climate controls from there to here, you know, cut this out, make a 3D printed template for that. Right now, these buttons on the Challenger center console are not functional at the moment, but yeah, everything else works. Like I said, manual mode on the shifter stock. We didn't end up doing the power window and power door lock conversion. We tried. The parts vehicle we got was missing a bunch of stuff, and we were just so occupied with trying to get everything else done. So it can be done at a later date if we choose to, but yeah, overall, this thing came out really, really nice. Also, we did the suede headliner. These got to get wrapped. I'm not an upholstery person by any means. I did end up painting them with the fabric paint, but actual upholstery place could take these and wrap them accordingly, but I at least did all the headliner. And then here's the board behind the seats. So we're not sure if it's going to stay in, so I didn't put the clips to hold it in just yet, because it does eat into a little bit of seat room on the vehicle. So we're going to see if he still fits in here with this. So we might be taking it out, but either way, that is about it. All right, guys, well, the truck is gone. So I know some people might be sad. They might say, oh, we wanted to see this XYZ. Put in the comments below what exactly you want to see, and I will get you guys that content. So truck's gonna be coming back in about 1,000 miles, just some break-in miles. So it'll come back. I'm gonna make sure and double, triple check that everything is still tight, everything's good. We'll do some fluid changes on it, and yeah, go from there. But you guys down in the comments below need to let me know, what kind of stuff do you guys want to see with that truck when it comes back for its next service interval. So if you guys need help with any of your swaps, if you're going to do a hemi swap, hellcat swap, or you guys just want my help and assistance remotely with your build, head over to shopboosted.com. We've got consultations for you guys. So no matter what you're trying to do, we got you covered, so I can help you guys one-on-one and get you guys dialed in. Also, we've got a bunch of stuff over on shopboost.com, a bunch of products, merchandise, and I need your guys' input. I know I did have the 85mm throttle bodies that we were doing before. The machinist that I had making them for us, he ended up going out of business, but I might be able to offer Boosted Motorsports branded billet throttle bodies. Let me know down below if you guys would be interested in these. It would be for 5.7, 6.4, even the older stuff, and 6.1, as well as 6.2 Hellcat stuff. I've been talking with the manufacturer about getting those for us, but let me know if you guys would be interested in purchasing something like that, a Boosted Motorsports billet throttle body. So anyways, give it a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, but don't be too sad. Like I mentioned, the vehicle will be back after the break-in miles are done, so you guys will see it around here quite a bit as well. So thanks for watching. Catch you guys on the next one.